Hello, hello. Hi, let's see if we end up getting some people up in here. We got 3 people on so far. Let's see what we can get going. Sorry I'm on a couple of minutes late. Um, the chicks have gotten to the point now that if I do not have enough food in there, that they will go absolutely ballistic and decide to make a whole ton of noise and things like that. And then on top of that, I discovered I didn't have any coffee in the coffee maker, so that meant that I had to go grab a cup of tea instead. Oh, good morning. I'm glad to go and see some people are starting to come in. We'll go and get a few people in here. You guys, so as always, you're more than welcome to go and throw up a question or something like that. If you decide to get nagging, I'm probably going to go and kick you out of here. But otherwise than that, feel free to ask just about anything. If I politely tell you that it's not something I feel like answering, don't ask it again. It's that simple. Feel free to throw up any tech questions that you have or anything on a recent video or past videos in the past that you have some sort of throwback question about. I'm sorry that I don't have comments. YouTube is being a bunch of poo heads and I really can't do anything about it. For those of you who follow my community tab, and for those of you who follow on the Facebook page, I posted up exactly the conversation that I just had with YouTube. And yeah, as you can see, YouTube seems to go and think that my channel is for kids, even though I blatantly said, well, what child do you know uses a welder outside of myself at 13 years old? But, you know, that's how it goes. Let's see. Andrew, how's it going, man? Everything's going good. So far, this cornhole virus stupid thing has managed to go and stay at Jesse's work. Everything that's going on has managed to slightly subside at this point. Hopefully, there won't be any new outbreaks and cases, and then that means we'll be able to go back to seeing John. Boy, do I miss that kid. It's horrible not being able to go and see him, and it's heartbreaking as can be, especially when I run across projects that he normally would help me on. Basically, every tractor I work on is usually something he would have helped with, but we're making it. We're getting things done. I'm actually remodeling his room right now so that when he comes back, he'll have a better room. I put bunk beds in. I'm going to make a shelving area underneath with a desk. That way he's got a place for the laptop that he uses and stuff like that. And he's got his own laptop in there that he uses. And so I'm going to set him up a better place. That way when he comes back, you know, it'll be new and fresh. But yeah, otherwise than that, that's life and way things are going. Why aren't John Deere garden tractors common in Maine? I don't really know the answer to that question. What I have noticed is there are certain brands that do seem to be far more prolific up here than there are in other areas, like Cub Cadets and Gravely's from the 70s into the 80s. We just don't seem to have up here. Things like Bannerman's. You only see a Bannerman if somebody brought it to the state. They just plain weren't sold up here. Wheel horses are another one where a lot of you guys down south find wheel horses prolifically all over the place. I sometimes will see like a late 90s wheel horse, the type with the 633, but that's pretty much about it. You know, for the most part up here, it's Craftsman's, newer Cub Cadets, Yard Machines. Simplicities are pretty common around here quite often. Things like that. That's what we usually end up seeing. What happened to the GT Stanley, the yellow tractor? It's still here. Right now, see the way my season works is that I pick up a whole ton of machines when they start showing up, when people are cleaning out and cleaning up the yards and working through all the yards and everything. And when that drops off is when I start doing the higher end builds, the machines that are worth like 500 and up. But until then, I usually tend to just focus on the $250 to $300 machines because those are what tend to sell at the beginning of the year. As far as that Stanley is concerned, that Stanley up and running is a $500 to $600 machine all day long. But the problem is it needs transmission parts, I'm pretty sure. I mean, the real reality is it's got a clunk in the transmission, and a clunk in the transmission is usually one of two things. It's either dropped a link in reverse or it's got a gear that's got a tooth missing. And if that's the case, then I've got to go deal with either hunting down a gear, and eBay right now is an utter total poop shoot, and or it's got a chain that's dropped, but the chances of it being a chain dropped when it has reverse are slim to none because the reverse is working perfectly fine right now. It could, however, be a kink in the chain. That has happened, but it probably isn't the case. So the reason why the yellow one hasn't been worked on yet is because I got to tear into it and I got to hunt parts and then I got to wait for parts to come in. That makes it a 2-week long production video, and I just don't have the time for that right now. Let's see. Good to hear. Must be hard. Couldn't imagine not being able to see my kids. Yeah, luckily John's biological mother has been really good about the idea of us being able to call and talk to him for an hour here and an hour there and work through things and being able to talk with him. She went out of her way to go and take him out to the cabin to go see it and stuff and be able to go and hang out there, which was really cool and great to go and see. Let me see. Lauren says, just picked up a couple of mowers with 820s and 22 horsepower Kohlers. Yeah, the 820s were paired with a lot of 22 horsepower Kohlers. 22 horsepower Kohlers and 21 horsepower Intex, for some reason, they were paired up with quite often. Those seem to be the two engines that I look for in hopes that there's an 820. And I think I saw somebody else down here was asking, where is it? I think you guys were asking where to, oh yeah, what mowers came factory with Peerless 820s? I would love to go and say that there's a definite answer to that question. But what I have pretty much been able to wrap it around at this point is it's usually around late 90s to early 2000s GT Murrays. It's also Craftsman GTs out of that series. The problem is 820s they weren't necessarily discontinued, but they became rather rare after the early 2000s. They became a major thing around 95, 96, and then later in the 2000s, they kind of died off, which is why we don't see a prolific amount of them popping back up again. The 820 was kind of an in-between when they were still monkeying around with whether 633s were worth having and whether they were going to convert from the GT6000 platform to the GT5000 that they run now. So that's that in between that you're looking for. They were a conversion transmission, it seems like. Just keep an eye out for that. And a lot of times they were matched with the 21 horsepower Intex and the 22 Kohlers when they first started coming out. So watch for those particular motors and then watch for the rear tires to be 22-inch tires. Most of them are paired up with 20s and 22s. So that's a really good indication also. Let me see. How many mud mowers you got? Right now, there's just the one dedicated mud mower. There are a couple of possibilities that I'm working with right now. The big thing right now is just to get through the flip season, the early part of it. Once the flip season slows down, we'll start back into the build stuff, okay? You building a race mower yet? It's in the works. Oh, let me see here. Oh. Hey, have you guys seen this? A buddy of mine dropped these off for me. Lime. They're lime ginger ales. I absolutely love them, actually. They're really good. I like the lemonade one better, but these lime ones are really good. So, thank you, bud. I appreciate the drop off. Let's see. So, okay. So as far as the whole racing mower thing is concerned, the problem is I need to flip some tractors to make some money so that we can have gravel on our driveway. Once we get gravel on the driveway, then we can do the drag racing idea. As it is right now, I don't have the gravel, and well, the economy sucks right now. So I've got to, the way my finances work with flipping lawn tractors is that my big goal is to make sure to put away $1,000 to make sure heating bills are paid, put away another $1,000 to make sure electrical is paid, and put away another $1,000 in order to make sure that stupid little nitpicky stuff is paid for. So basically, until I hit the $3,000 mark worth of savings, I don't tend to spend on too many extras that I don't have to. Usually, that is no problem to go and hit. Normally, by now, I have flipped at least 10 tractors. This year so far, I have sold 2. And so we're just kind of waiting in to go and see what happens with the economy. And then as soon as I can, I will put some gravel down, and then we'll work on the drag racing stuff. If you guys are following, if you're following over on RCG Racing, I actually just posted up a video of the Ranger and working on getting it fired up in order to be able to work on that. We've got a ton of junkyard repair to do on that, and we're going to be starting in on that as some video to go and get you guys something different to go and watch. The goal is going to be to put in a video on that at least every week to 2 weeks, depending on how things work out. The goal is to do some sort of junkyard type repair on it at least every week to 2 weeks. Let's see. Well, the classic question just popped up that we always get is what happened to the original Maine mud mower? The original Maine mud mower, if you look up Maine mud mower on YouTube, is unfortunately tied in with another YouTuber that I just needed to disconnect myself from. Also, that frame was utterly, totally bent. I was on my 4th or my 5th transaxle on that frame. I was on my 2nd or 3rd motor on that frame. I was on my 2nd set of steering. It just was time to go and retire that machine. It had been beaten and bruised and plowed my driveway for 5 winters. It just was time for it to move on. So I built the Mud Wizard and never looked back. I do have a couple other machines that are debatable in progress. I'm kind of in a crossroads right now on what I want to do, and I'm waiting to see whether a couple of deals potentially go through. There's a tractor with a snowblower attachment already hooked up, ready to go, that's in my area, that if I can flip a machine, negotiate a better price, then it means that I can take the snowblower attachment tractor that I have right now and I can put it on the back burner. But if I can't manage to work a deal for a machine, then I've got to bring something forward, and that's that machine. The other problem is, most of you know, my plow truck was utterly, totally mangled and abused by the people that were here. High quality people apparently like to go and mess with stuff and do all kinds of lovely things. So I've got to go and get something orchestrated for plow season. And it sounds weird to talk about that right now at the start of summer, but the reality here in Maine is that what right now you can buy for $200 is $500 the start of winter. So if I see a snowblower and a lawn tractor combo for, say, $400 right now, it'll be an $800 setup after the second or third snowstorm. So that's the way you have to think when you're in the Maine economy and the way things flip here. All right, let's see. Drifty Stevens, I'm building a go-kart. Now I'm needing a rear axle. If it's a 3/4-inch rear axle and you don't mind waiting, surpluscenter.com is most definitely the cheapest place I have found to order up 3/4-inch keyed axles. They take about 2 weeks to do their turnaround, but their shipping is really, really cheap, and their pricing is most definitely way better than everybody else's for that kind of stuff. Hey, Jesse, love you. I hope you're having a good time at work. I hope everything's going okay, and I hope you're processing through everything. Everybody give a shout out to my girlfriend, Jessie, if you happen to go and feel like it. She's currently working at a nursing home in the middle of all this virus stuff, and she's a trooper. Hands down, I couldn't do the job that she does. I could not put up with the stuff that she does, and I couldn't manage to go and deal with everything going on. So give her a shout out for being a trooper and keeping everything going. All right, let me see. All right, catching up on what you guys got going on. Why is there always just that one person who dislikes all of your live streams? You know what? I don't care. Haters gonna hate. It is what it is. And the real reality is most of the time those people are somebody that I called out. So it is what it is. If they don't like the fact that I'm willing to go and say something and I'm willing to point out why, then too bad for them. It is what it is. All right. Why? Okay. Minnesota Oliver. Why some don't like variable speed, vari drive tractors. I'm mud mowers and garden lawn tractors. Okay. So the reason why it is that people don't like them is the same exact reason why it is that when you have like a snowmobile or a golf cart or anything like that that has a variable drive system, you have to make sure that the vari drive stays dry. There's a reason why it is that your snowmobile has like 2 to 3 shrouds before it ever gets anywhere near being able to touch that vari drive. As soon as you get it wet, it slips in some form. As we all know from building mud mowers, your biggest problem is slippage on the dry belt once you get into the water. So make sure that you're not slipping. You don't use a variable system. Love you, Jesse. I'll see you when you get done with work. Let me see here. Let's see. Why don't people's okay? Carts and Cameras has a question here of why doesn't people run footies in their Craftsman mud mowers and racing mowers? Okay, so you know those. Okay, the easiest way to go and come up with this, okay, is you know those situations where you have the real item and then you have the Chinese knockoff item. Well, basically, footy is to the 930 what Chinese knockoff is to the real part. Okay. Footies usually are Chinese knockoffs of older Peerless transmissions. The Footy 3600 or the Spicer 3600 is a blatant knockoff of the Peerless 930. If you happen to have seen my last tractor hunt video with the Craftsman in it, you all saw what happened with the 930 that was in it. And in all honesty, that's actually not that uncommon when it comes to those 930s, which is the reason why it is that footies tend to explode also. If you copy a design that tends to explode under just mowing the grass situations, imagine what it'll do if you torque it up with 22-inch tires and a pulley swap. Let's see. Ronald Ritchie says, do you like Kohler or Briggs better? See, okay. That's kind of a hard question to answer. And the reason why it's a hard question to answer is that it really depends on what we're talking about here. As far as, let me word it this way. As far as what I tend to find less screwed up when I go tractor hunting, it is usually Kohlers. Kohlers tend to lock in their valves better. I very rarely end up finding Kohlers with thrown rods and things like that. Does that make Kohlers a better motor? I don't really think so. What I find with Kohlers is that the reason that tends to happen is that they just plain don't run at the higher RPMs that Briggs tend to run, and they don't seem to get used as extensively as Briggs does. If you have 3,000 Briggs and you only have 300 Kohlers, and you try to compare the breakdown of 300 Kohlers in numbers to the 3,000 Briggs in numbers, of course there's going to be more dead Briggs. And that tends to be the thing about Kohlers, is, you know, you can't see a bunch of them dead if there isn't a bunch of them to see dead. The other thing I don't like about Kohler is that up until the Chinese knockoffs really started nailing Kohler, they were way more expensive. A single cylinder Briggs starter you could easily pick up for 40 to 50 bucks, whereas the Kohler was 70. The carburetors, you could easily pick up a carburetor for like 20, 30, anywhere between 15 to 20 bucks, whereas the Kohlers were still $30. And even the Chinese knockoffs are just barely 25. So everything is more expensive. The other thing is Kohler loves to use proprietary fuel pumps, which means that stupid fuel pump, even though it's the same PSI as the universal vacuum pump, instead of being $20, is like $45. As far as repair cost and everything, the Kohlers are always more. So it's kind of like trying to go and compare like Porsche breakdown to Camaros or something like that. You're trying to compare a limited production to a mass production, and it's just a totally different market. As far as what I can rip apart way faster and fix way faster, 9 out of 10, it's a Briggs every time. Let's see. Hey, jerk of all trades. Glad to have you here. Evening. Hey, we got Parts and Pieces here. The last time we had a live chat, we managed to go and slam Parts and Pieces up into 100 subscribers. That was awesome. Good job, guys. All right, let's see. Let's get caught up here. Anyone know what makes a good straight pipe for a Kohler K24? Conduit. Doc Sprocket makes a really good mower exhaust how-to video over on his channel. Doc Sprocket, the reason why I don't touch the whole exhaust thing is that when I build the mud mowers, I build them to meet and exceed ATV requirements in the state of Maine. You cannot straight pipe a mower in the state of Maine and be legal for the state of Maine ATV stuff. So if you get pulled over and you have a straight pipe in the state of Maine, not only can they impound you, they can fine you $1,000 right then and there. So you lose your ATV or mud mower, and they can fine you $1,000. So I always run the stock mufflers on all of my builds. But if you're looking to build your own straight pipe in order to do a drag racing mower, a racing mower, or something like that, checking out Doc Sprocket on YouTube is who I always recommend. He's got a bunch of different videos on it. I think he did like 4 different videos, if I remember right. So go check him out. He's really good people. Tell him I sent you. He's really cool. Whoa. Okay, somebody decided to go and blow up stuff. Okay, let me see. Oh, you guys. Okay. You're talking to Jesse. Thank you guys for supporting her. You know, she's really trying really hard to go and push through this whole thing. Luckily, the virus has been stable for the last week or so at her workplace. We're really hoping this thing moves through, because if it moves through and consistently the numbers keep dropping, we'll be able to go back to seeing John and having John here. It's just until it gets out of her workplace, we've got to go and take it that extreme, unfortunately. Let's see. Yes, thank you guys for supporting her. All right, let's see. Going to check them out. Okay, yeah, check out surpluscenter.com. And like I said, all of you, check out surpluscenter.com and go through. They're cheap, but it's 2 weeks at least to get something shipped. So plan ahead. Any tip to get the big pulley off a transaxle without destroying it? Yes. Go onto my YouTube channel and search for transaxle pulley removal or wax pulley removal on YouTube and look for my video. It will show you exactly how to it'll show you exactly how to go and drop that pulley off. And basically the easiest way to go and drop those pulleys is, let me see if I got something here. All right, we got a lid here we're going to use to represent a pulley. Actually, it's got a tractor number on it for a buddy of mine. Hey, if any of you happen to be like really major like swap gurus, I know I messed this up, but I got a buddy of mine. He's got an LGT 2654. And he's looking to be able to convert it over to a foot throttle system. He wants the side right-hand foot throttle. And so we're looking for something that is compatible to be able to switch it over. So yet again, for those of you who are gurus and want to go and do some research, LGT 2654 is what we're looking for. Okay, so going back to the pulley thing. All right, so let me find something here. All right, so this is the top of your transaxle. This is your pulley, okay? And this is where your pulley's connecting in the top of it, okay? If you take it and you put it so that 2x4s are underneath each side of it, so that your 2x4s are like that underneath each side of that pulley, and you heat this with a torch, make sure you've got your pin off the top of here, your clip. And what you do is you heat it from underneath and you put candle wax all around the top of it and just heat it, and it'll soak the wax down through. And then while it's on top of those 2x4s, you drive that thing through with either an air hammer or a chisel or a punch or something like that, whatever you do, don't ball peen that over the top. Just drive it in the center. What I actually recommend to a lot of people to do is actually drill a center punch hole in it so that you hold that punch there. And if you look it up, you'll see my video on it in order to be able to do that. Let's see. Let me see. Have you ever tried putting a centrifugal clutch on the engine output and running a chain transaxle instead of a belt? All right, so your problem with that is chain does not run this direction. Chain runs this direction, chain runs this direction. It runs every direction in this axis. It does not run in this axis, okay? So that's something to always keep in mind with chain. Apparently the chicks finally decided to go to bed. I'm on the side of the road watching this because my power went out. That's awesome. Thank you. That's dedication right there. You're one of the 30 or so that always stop in every 2 weeks in order to see this stupidity of mine. Thank you very much. Yeah, Minnesota, I get you on the John Deeres. I mean, I get why it is people like the old John Deeres. The problem is, for me, there's no return in restoring them. The problem with anything older than the 90s and stuff like that is that the amount of money you put in it in order to be able to get it up and running, you will never ever get that amount of money back out of it selling it. And so you've got to do that kind of stuff only for things that you really love and you're really maintaining and wanting to have. And that's not really what I do here. I mean, I mow my lawn with up to 30 or 40 different machines a year. I have no emotional connection to any of them at all. I have literally been mowing my lawn with somebody showing up to look at another machine and ended up selling them the machine that I was mowing on when they rode in because they liked how it was mowing. That's just the way you got to be if you're going to do what I do. There's no connections, no emotional, whatever. If it mows and it goes, it's up for sale. I'm not Chuck. As far as your MTD transaxle question is concerned, just go straight to my channel and go to the MTD Power Wheel build. You'll see the part 1 and 2 of the transaxle build where I take it apart, and then part 2 is where I put it back together and I go through everything. So go ahead and look in the MTD Power Wheels build series. You'll see all of that. Let's see. What happened to the 86 F-250 plow truck you had when you started the channel? That developed a just absolute rash of problems. It started having really, really random electrical issues, and the truck ended up coming from a place that sat right on the coast. And I don't mean like up the bay like I am. I mean at a house on the coastline and not in a bay, like on the coast. And so over time, it developed every stupid electrical problem you could ever want. And I constantly was hunting down one electrical thing after another. And then the icing on the cake was that it had a double bowl carburetor. I can't remember what type it was, but it had a double bowl carburetor. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it decided to sink the back bowl float. And it was atrociously big pain in the neck. And it would have had to have been ripped down, rewired, redone, everything. It just wasn't worth it at that time. So I sold it for 500 bucks for the plow gear. And then I bought the one that's here because this was road legal when I bought it. And that was another case of main inspection is a big farce and stupid and a lie, because there were things on that that never should have passed legal inspection. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we can catch up on a few things. Let's see. Let's see. We're gonna put user in timeout. Oh, there we go. Okay, that'll sort things out. Let's see. See, a nice thing about this is if I put a user in timeout, what it does is it sets all of their comments to be fuzzed out, and I can just go down through and sort, and I don't have to deal with them, and just skip everything. Let's see. Is a 13 horsepower Briggs a good motor? If it's an actual Briggs, yes. And you want to be careful about the flathead 13 horsepower. Those are notorious for throwing rods, but the 12 horsepower rod fits in a 13. So you can switch it out if you end up having that case happen. Let's see. I got a free LT4000 with a 13 horsepower Briggs with a broken rod. See? Yeah, the 13 horsepower Briggs loves to throw rods. It just is one of those motors. I got a coffee cup. Hey, thank you for ordering one of the coffee cups. I've actually got a new series of shirts that are showing up pretty soon. I was bouncing ideas off of a buddy of mine and a few other people that watch my channel on a regular basis. So we've got some stuff showing up pretty soon. This is my coffee cup that I love the most. This isn't mine. This is something that I ordered online. It says, "I'm trying to be awesome today, but I'm exhausted from being so freaking awesome yesterday." It's my reminder cup that I need to just not kill myself trying to do everything in one day, because that does tend to be my work ethic. My work ethic tends to go and be to work like a 16-hour day straight and then wonder why it is I can't get out of bed the next day. It just reminds me that I need to keep it to 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. Because when you work for yourself and you have to regulate your own time, it tends to happen. Hi, I have a Craftsman DL35 100-yard tractor with a 20 horsepower overhead Briggs hooked up my foot gasser to governor arm and carefully not overriding it. Is this fine without using control bracket that I kept off? Okay. This is one of those cases where everybody has an opinion. And my opinion has always been, if the governor is going to be there, you should be using the actual gas pull location. If you're going to delete the governor, then feel free to change it up, because at that point, the ball's in your court on whether the thing goes kablooey or not. But if the governor is there, do not hitch to the governor, because that is just asking to overdrive and take that governor gear and explode it in the bottom of the case. And then at that point, you're going to be toaster strudels, and you'll probably post some comment about how, mean people said to do this or something. Don't do that. If you do not delete the governor and remove the governor gear, never ever tie to the governor. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, as far as you guys and rebuilding tractors and stuff like that is concerned, That's awesome. I mean, just take the time, work through them and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it is what it is. Go and go through and rebuild them and all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Dante, if you are wanting attention that bad, call your parents. Oh, I take it he's still spamming in the background. Oh, well, I can't see what he's doing, so I could care less. Let's see. Are Peerless 832s any good? I think what you're talking about is the 832 that was a 2 or a 3-speed or something. It's one of those weird vertical set transmissions. I don't really have an answer for you if that's the case. I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about, but I actually in my life have never personally ever touched one. So I really can't give you an honest opinion there. Have I thought about building a diesel? Actually, I have several times thought about building a diesel. Um, I have a machine that has a hydro rear in it that I have debated numerous times whether I could build a loader for it. And the hydro pulley on it is on the side instead of a top mount. So if I had a diesel motor in the front driving the hydro pulley in the rear, and it's an independent pump, I could upgrade the pump there to have an extra line off of it to run a loader. That's been my ongoing debate a few times. It's just the wrong time of year for me to go and be working on it. Let's see. Mine is a foot throttle with a BMX brake upside down, bolted down, and the BMX cable to governor arm. Yeah, as far as you guys that are running the brake cables, the brake bike assembly and stuff like that, another thing that you could look into, which is what I've debated doing a couple of times, because I find that the brake cable assemblies, the cable tends to go and stretch on them over time, is a motorcycle clutch cable assembly, because the clutch cabling is way thicker than a bike brake cable, and it's only about $10 more for one of those on Amazon. So I'm throwing that out there and passing it on for you guys, that might be something to check on. On the lawn tractor, is there a serial number somewhere else other than on the sticker someone painted over the one I have? If you have paint on your sticker, the easiest way to go and deal with that is to just acetone the paint and let it sit. Tape it off around the sticker and put with black tape. With black tape, go around the sticker with probably about 4 or 5 layers, just building it up. So you can set acetone on it and then let the acetone soak and eat into the paint. And a lot of times it'll chip right off. Otherwise than that, unless it was something like a Cub Cadet where they have it on the frame rail also, that's about it. Let's see. Can you do a video on the Jeep in your driveway? Maybe do a start video. That is actually on the to-do list. The problem is I can't seem to get a day without 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. And literally the only reason you guys ended up with a truck video over on RCG Racing yesterday was because Jesse came home in time to be able to hold my camera because my tripod kept getting ripped over by the wind. The wind has been so bad, I can't set a tripod out without it getting knocked over. I'm about ready to sandbag my tripod, and I've never had to do that. This has just been, apparently I got burps in that. Ah, yucky. Okay. Limeade, when you burp it, does not taste good. That was atrocious. Okay, that's something I don't care to do again. No more burping limeade. All right. But yes, I will go and get some video of that. Hey, while we're here, I wanted to go and show these in video because I thought this was interesting. So, for years, unfortunately, when I came home, as you guys know, high quality people decided to make off with a few of my tools. So for years, I have had these, let me flip them over, these Duralast ratchet ends. So basically, if you look at this, you've got a 3/8, and then you've got a 7/16, and then you flip it, and you've got a 5/16, and you got a 1/2 inch here. So you got 4 ratcheting wrench ends on each one. And then they've got a bigger one that matches. So I thought it was really interesting so these, as far as I know, up until a few years ago, were basically a Duralast AutoZone thing only. That was the only place I could find them with the actual ends and stuff and all of that. And I swear by these. I love them. But like I said, I discovered that a bunch of them were stolen. So I needed to replace them. And I discovered that Husky decided to produce their version. It also carries a lifetime guarantee. But what I wanted to show you was, if I flip this over, both of these have an 18, but you can see the difference. This is the Duralast here. You can see the strength difference there. They both have 18s. They both have 19s. But what is interesting is that if I flip it to the other end for the metric, I have a 17 and a 17, but I have a 16 on one and I have a 14 on the other. Neither one of these sets has a 15. So, like this one here, this is the Husky one. It's a 10, an 8, a 12, and a 13. And you've got this little adjuster here. So see? So I just figured I'd pass these along. You can actually order the Husky version on Amazon, but I thought it was really interesting, the difference. See, here's the Duralast, and here's the Husky next to each other. You can see the big difference in the amount of metal around there. So the question is it less quality or better quality steel? But I think it's interesting. So I figured I'd share it with you guys. But I love the Duralast ones, and unfortunately, I'm going to end up having to buy another set of the Duralast English ones, but there's no 15. So if you do something that has 15, you know now to go and stay away from those on a regular basis. Oh, but what I did discover also with these is that if you get the sockets that have the socketed end piece, you can put one of those 15s into, I think it's either the 18 or the 19 on this one. So you can have a 15 on it. It's just on an extension. Passing on that tip. All right, let me see here. Oh, wow, you guys are blowing up the chat. Okay. What are my thoughts on Briggs opposed twins? The nice thing about a Briggs opposed twin is that it'll run on one cylinder. Let that sink in. You can take a Briggs twin and you can literally snap that spark plug off in one side and it will still run on the other cylinder. It'll be horrible to start, but it'll still run. On a V-twin, that doesn't happen. That is one of the things that I like about them. On the other hand, if you have this thing called a wallet and you pay for all the gas, you don't want one. Let's see. I just got a Cub Cadet that keeps breaking steering ends. Is there any update to help it? If you're breaking steering ends, then you've got to be in a situation where you're torquing up on something. I would figure out what's binding. You shouldn't be breaking steering ends. Okay, well, Drifty Stevens, you think I need a moderator, and there you go. You're a moderator. Let's see. What do I think about Tecumseh motors? Well, if it has anything that says Enduro and then Tecumseh, I'm pretty well of the firm opinion it should be thrown in the pond while running so that you can see the puff of smoke. Otherwise than that, they're good engines. I got a Peerless 830, the biggest. Okay, here's a classic question that just got popped up by Bayside Customs. And so Bayside, I'm going to go and answer your question, but I'm going to answer it as a generalized statement, okay? I get this a lot. What's the biggest ATV tire that I can run without blowing up my transaxle? And the answer to that question is not always the size. A lot of it is how you drive and the lug size that you have on that tire and the amount of lugs. If you have a really, really lug heavy tire and it has a 1.5 inch long lug, like something like a Mamba or something like that, if you're not running a 633 or a 2300, you're going to blow something. That just is how it is. The other thing is, if you're running like 18-inch tires, you can probably lug it up quite a bit. But if you're running anything above a 20-inch ATV tire and you have a decent set of lugs on there and you're running a 1-to-1 gear ratio, every time you drop that clutch and you do it aggressively, you are buying a lottery ticket on whether you're rebuilding a transmission. That just is what it is. That it doesn't matter whether it's a Footy, whether it's a Spicer, whether it's a Peerless, whether it is an MTD Vari-Drive. If you have 22-inch tires on there and they have a decent lug and you clutch drop that thing, you need to be throwing $1 into the lottery ticket jar. Red Oak Mower says, I have a pull-in tractor with a blown 17 horsepower. Would a Craftsman 15 horsepower Kohler command do? Yeah, there's no reason it shouldn't. As long as you're not running an upgraded deck, you should be fine. Which if you have a 17, I'm going to bet you have a 42-inch deck. If you were running one of the 48-inch decks, then I would say your 17 was underpowered to begin with. If it's got a 48-inch deck, I don't like to run anything below 19 horsepower. You're basically just asking to blow something up. Really, if it's got a 42, it should have a 15 to a 19 horsepower. If you got a 38, you can get down into the 13s easy enough, just as long as you're making sure to consistently go through and do your stuff. How can you fix a broken chan in a transaxle? Colts, can you elaborate on your question, maybe? Let's see. Hey, Bayside Customs, do you mean that you have a Peerless 800? Because a Peerless 800 looks a lot like an 820, but it's got a rounded booty. Instead of a square back like an 820, it's got a rounded off booty on the end of it, if that's what you're talking about. Let's see here. Wow, okay. You guys are really posting some comments. My GoPro fell over while I was welding. The outcome was not good. Yeah. I've had some camera fails that have been catastrophic at times. I actually had one of the little Chinese knockoffs ended up in a quart of Rust-Oleum paint. And what was funny is it actually worked for almost a week or so afterwards. And then it just progressively started doing stupid stuff. Yeah. Oh, as far as the GoPro though, as far as your GoPro and weld splatter, so go on. If your GoPro is a newer GoPro, like this one, if your GoPro is a newer GoPro like this version, you can actually get, let me see if I got one right here. Yep, here it is. Where is it? Yeah, right there. I don't know if you can see that. Those are clear plexiglass lenses. See that? They're stick-on clear plastic plexiglass. Like my GoPro, it's got a chunk right there. You see that white line? It's got a chunk in the center of that. That's actually the plexiglass cover. And the kits on Amazon are like $10. If you're going to do anything that puts that GoPro in danger, I fully recommend them. And the kits are actually waterproof. The plexiglassing is waterproof also, as long as you put it on really clean. And that way you don't end up destroying stuff. So that's my tip for YouTubers out there, is if you got one of those GoPros, spend the $10 in order to get the little plexiglass lens covers. They'll stop welder burn from going through. They'll stop just about everything. I've shot that one with grinder sparks and all kinds of stuff. You can see the outside is all scarred up, but that the lens looks nice and clean. See how it's all discolored and everything, but the lens looks clean? That's because that's a newer plexiglass and that's an older one. So there's my tech tip for surviving YouTube world. All right, let me see here. Greetings from Sweden. Cool. All right, let me see. So I'm gonna butcher your name. I really am sorry. Jockey or Jokey Lunanodovic. I just purchased a Scandi 12 horsepower tractor made in the USA. I have no idea what a Scandi is. I'll have to Google that one later. Made in the USA. It's been underwater. Just got the engine running. Transaxle is frozen in neutral. It's a 6-speed, maybe an MST 206. Any advice about it? Yeah, pop it open. If you go on my channel, you'll see the Spicer versus 930 video that I did. That MST206, it pulls pretty much apart exactly the same, with one exception. Let me grab my phone here. Okay, so if this is the top of your transaxle where your pulley goes in, and you've got your axle coming out on either side, and this is the front facing towards the tractor when you're looking at it, on this side over here, there's going to be two screws, or yeah, two bolts that are going to be going either down or going up from the bottom, depending on when it was built. At some point, MST thought they would be brilliant in order to make us have to buy new stuff. And what they did was they flipped the bolt direction in the MST. Except for what I discovered years ago was that, ironically, if you just drill straight through that and you put a connecting bolt and nut, it works perfectly. The cases are interchangeable. The top, the bottom, they're both exactly the same, just the direction of the hole. And they line up. If you have a top with a hole and a bottom with a hole, the holes line up. That's my tech tip for putting transaxles together. Let's see. Hi, Sir Stanza the Third. Redneck Computer Geek, what's up, man? Is flipping lawn mowers your main source of income, or do you also do repairs for people? I do not do any customer service. I was a computer tech for 13 years, dealing with the most absolutely retarded, stupid questions ever. To give you an example, I literally would get called at least about once every couple of months with the question of, I just bought a mouse. Do I have to plug it in? I don't do customer service. I don't deal with it. I do what I do, and I answer questions for you guys when they're politely asked and when they're politely written, because I like the fact that now, if somebody wants to be an idiot, I get to ignore them. So flipping lawn tractors is my primary income. I have in the past, I have literally cleared 15 G's worth of flipping tractors in a summer. I do the how-to videos because the YouTube income gets me through the winter, and I like flipping tractors. I like doing what I do. This year is going to be tight. Nobody's got any extra cash. So I'm going to try to be doing a lot more how-tos for you guys this year than I usually do. And we're going to keep moving it from there. Let me see. Parts and Pieces says, I ordered a brand new carb off eBay for a 13.5 Briggs. It was $15. It is a no-name carb. I put it on and cranked up fine. No tuning needed. The one thing that I'll tell you is watch your spark plug. If you're dealing, I have a certain series of Chinese brands I order from because I've had consistent luck with them. And the reason why I'm giving you that warning is that what the Chinese brands will figure out is that their carburetor will manage to run like a 13 through 17 or something like that. And so it'll be tuned for the 15, which means that it's overly rich for your 13 and it's overly lean for your 17. So watch out, check your spark plug on a regular basis and just keep an eye on things. That's my recommendation. The other thing that I've noticed with the Chinese carburetors is that anytime I buy a Chinese carburetor, and I don't do this on video, so please feel free not to go and comment about it. But when I take a Chinese carburetor out of the package, what I always do is I hold it to my ear and I shake it back and forth. And the reason being is what I have discovered is it is very common for the float in those to be stuck in the open position. I don't know why, but it seems to be a constant problem. They either get stuck because of shipping or something like that. And oftentimes, if you shake them, you won't hear the float. So you twack it on something once or twice, and the float will come free, and then I hook it up. There have been a lot of times I have hooked up a Chinese carburetor and ended up with a flooded motor because I didn't do that. So always, always, always double check. Shake it like a maraca, and if you don't hear that float, you need to fix that first. That's also the way that I check gummed up carbs, by the way, also, is I flip them so that the valve should be open, and I dump out all the gas that I can, and then I shake it like a maraca. And a lot of times the sludge will cause it to not click. Like if you do it often enough, you'll hear the difference. And that's one of my diagnostics things that I don't show on YouTube videos because I don't feel like dealing with the stupid, dumb comments. Okay, let's see. All right, let's catch up on stuff. Here we go. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. My opposed twin gets better gas mileage than my V-twin does. If that's the case, your V-twin has something very wrong with it. V-twin should get way better gas mileage. I'd say you need to go and look into your carburetor or something. When you do a pulley swap, is it better to swap the engine pulley or the transaxle pulley? There's been a lot of debate about that over the years, and here's what I will tell you. It is way easier. It is way easier to swap the engine pulley, leaving a stock clutch assembly in place, than it is to do a transaxle. Almost all your Murrays, basically all your Murrays, your MTDs, all of that stuff, if it is not an AYP Craftsman, if you go to swap that transaxle pulley, you got to deal with messing with your clutches. If you swap a Craftsman AYP on the transaxle or on the engine pulley, the stock clutch always works, unless you go over the size that'll fit on the engine. Most AYP chassis, you can fit the deck belt drive pulley, which is 5.5 inches, onto there and be able to use your stock clutch. The other thing you can do is you can up it to a 6 and you just take your idler on your clutch and you drop it down to a 3, and then you've gained another 1/2 inch. But that's my take on it. It's always easier to upgrade your engine than it is to do your transaxle. The transaxle always results in having to mess with clutches unless it's an AYP Craftsman. Let's see. Okay, we got some things going on about the mowing decks and stuff like that, talking about different engines and being able to drive certain different types of deck size. And let's see, Parts and Pieces comes back with his GoPro saying, yes, it's a 7 silver GoPro. Guess I need the covers. Lesson learned. Yeah, if you need help picking out those covers or whatever, I can send you the kit that I use. Go ahead and send me an email or something, and I can drop you the stuff. I just looked up Scandi. It's a rebranded Craftsman. Huh, good to know. I never knew that. Did you know that Craftsman is actually sold as a Craftsman in the Virginia Islands? I actually get emails from people in the Virginia Islands asking for repair tips. I always thought that was interesting. I actually helped a guy build kind of a mud mower-ish type rig in order to move boats around in the Virginia Islands. Empty places. I'm sorry, man. I don't deal with computer tech stuff anymore. But I'm sure there's other YouTubers that do that kind of thing. As far as AMD goes, back in the old days, if an AMD turned purple, you knew it was dead. Let's see. The real Mr. Mustache. I got an 18.5 horsepower Intech engine. It had a bunch of fuel in the oil, almost enough to hydro lock. I drain the oil and it fires right up. What would you try first? I'm not used to the solenoids. 9 out of 10 times, if you have gas in your oil, it is because your float is not coming up all the way. Your needle valve is sticking in the open position. You've either got grit inside of the needle valve seat, you've either got a rotted off tip on your needle valve, or you've got a float that is sinking. Those are the three common things. I can't move this finger because I broke it. It permanently is bent. It healed wrong. But you know what? I didn't get the cornhole virus, so I'm okay with that. This is my permanent reminder of cornhole. Let me see. Okay. Oh, some of you guys must have reposted some questions because I got so far behind. Sorry, guys. I know I get long-winded occasionally. Yeah. So some of you are kicking back in on the oil and gas thing. It always is carburetor problems. That you got to think of it this way, okay? Your gas comes out of your gas tank, it goes through the fuel line, it goes into your carburetor. There is only one place that gas can come from to end up in your gasoline. It somehow has to make it from there to your oil, which means it's going through your carburetor and then it's soaking down through your piston rings. And the problem is, you do that long enough, you're going to scour your piston ring to one side and you blow your motor. What site do I get my carbs from? I order almost everything now at this point off of Amazon. If it's a hard to find carb, I occasionally will check out eBay, because what I've discovered is that if the carb wasn't profitable enough to sell a Chinese knockoff in the US market, there still will be a Chinese knockoff available on eBay. So that's where I usually go. All right, let's see. It's funny how we get into lawn tractors. I'm a huge car, MC, ATV guy, but at the moment I'm hooked on good old lawn tractors. Yeah, it is. And it's a great way to teach kids. It's a great way to learn basics of driving. It's a good simplistic way to learn like about steering and flex and transmission shifting and all that kind of stuff. It just is a really good all-around way to go and work on stuff. Let's see. And Jockey, don't worry about asking questions. That's exactly what it is that we're here for. All right, let's see. What's your favorite lawn tractor engine? Hands down, 17 horsepower Briggs single. As far as the motor that as far as the motor that I can diagnose the fastest, almost always and perfectly right every single time, it is a red top 17 horsepower Briggs. I very rarely see them with blown rods. They were a really solid motor. And then they started producing those 17.5s for like the John Deere's and the Sabre knockoffs and stuff like that. And they ruined what really was one of the best. But yeah, without question, the 17 horsepower single Briggs, the red top, is without question my favorite. The carburetor swap on them is doable with the right wrenches in a matter of 5 minutes. You can swap a starter onto one of those in 5 minutes. You can swap the entire charging system on one of those in a matter of about 10-15 minutes at the worst. They're one of the easiest motors to work on. I mean, coils are easily doable in 10 minutes. I love them. Let me see. Let's see. Mr. Scott says, I love your Craftsman LT1000 video. I bought one last year from a person who didn't know anything about mowers. Came with a 12.5 IC Briggs made February 2018 China bought whole mower for $60. Just needed belts and choke adjustment. That's awesome. Yeah, the LT1000 without question is one of my favorite machines to work on. I mean, there is literally almost nothing on those machines that you can't manage to do in under 30 minutes. I mean, spindle replacements, deck belts you can do in like 5 minutes if you know what you're doing. Even on the older ones that are kind of a pain with the rod piece that you have to put in, like that one I just got done rebuilding. But yeah, they're just cute little machines. I love working on them. Let's see. Have you ever worked on any John Deere 318s or 400s with an Onan or a gas Yanmar or a diesel Yanmar? No, and the reason being is we just don't see those here in Maine. Onans were never a popular engine up in this area. In all of the years I've been doing this, for the last 8, going on 9 years of this, I have literally only worked on one Onan the entire time. The parts are just unavailable, so if it has an Onan, I usually avoid it. All right, guys, I've got stuff that I've got to unfortunately make sure to get done. So we're going to wrap this up in probably about 15 minutes or so. If you've got another major question or something you want to throw in, feel free to go ahead and ask, and we'll go from there. But I'm going to wrap this up probably in about 15 minutes or so. Okay. I watched the MTD trans disassembly and reassembly video. Where should I look in the trans for a cause of slippage? You wouldn't see slippage in your trans. Your trans is square cut gears. You can end up with a gear missing and have chunk, chunk, chunk sounds that you'll hear. But if you've got slippage, then that's your belts. Slippage you only get in your belt system unless you've got a hydro. If you have a hydro rear end, you can end up with your hydro slipping internally. But if you have a gear driven transmission and you have a slippage going on, that is your belt system. That is not the transmission. I apologize if I misunderstood that from your original email that you sent me. Carts and cameras, I covered the plow truck question. Let's see. My Craftsman has a severe rod knock on a 17 horse. Ah, it has a rod knock. Did not blow the rod yet. That was my point. Something about those 17s, the way they're designed, they're just that like perfect amount of horsepower and just enough that they don't tend to eat the rods. I don't know what it is about 17.5s and 19s and 21s, but they love to eat the rods. I got a dead 21 out here that it's only an 8-year-old mower, and it's got an absolutely obliterated rod. Redman says, I just found the channel today. Love your honest content. Hey, thank you. I do the best I can to go and throw up real world stuff. I don't like fake dumb bro channels and all that kind of stuff. The things that I post up are real and I keep it that way. I go out of my way to try to stay away from any kind of, what do they call that? Compilation video and stuff like that. We try to keep it fresh and a new video at least once a week. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for the compliment. And yeah, no bros, stupid, dumb channel stuff here. We're real and down to earth. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Most of my videos, there's an email down in the description. You can feel free to send me something. Yes, 14.5 horsepower is the same idea. There was something about the way they built those. It just was the right combination. Let's see. Do you think garden tractors will ever go the way of EFI? Hate to tell you this, man, but they already did. There are, I think there's 3 different zero turns on the market now with Kawasaki. It's either Kawasaki or Kohler put out a 28 or a 30 horsepower motor that's fuel injected. I've actually debated trying to see if I can buy the fuel injection system in order to adapt it, except for the fuel injection system on them is about $2,000 to drop. So I don't think we'll be doing that anytime soon, but hate to tell you, they've had fuel injected zero turns for, I think, 4 years now. I think I saw the first one 4 years ago. But as far as what we're going to see in a garden tractor, I think other than the really big twin series like GT tractors, I don't think we're going to see any of that ever actually hit. Do I think adding bearings to the MST206 helps? Yes. 99.9% it most definitely helps. I always change in bearings now. What is it? 6306 by 3/4 inch bearings. And you got to make sure when you're ordering those bearings that you order 3/4 inch bearings and you do not order 17 millimeter. When you're looking up the bearing number, the bearing number, the first 4 digits and the next set of digits are the outside diameter and then the width of the bearing area, but the actual inner core is what you have to check for. So always make sure to double and triple check you're ordering the right one. I have accidentally ordered the 17 millimeter twice now, and I'm the guy giving the advice. So please don't mess it up. And always order them in the 10 pack, okay? Do not order 2. You can order a 10 pack as long as you do your research for the same price as 2 of them. Yes, it'll take an extra hour I mean, an hour. Yes, it'll take an extra week to show up, but it's worth it. Let's see. Any advice for people who want to start flipping lawn tractors? I've really debated doing a video on that numerous times, except for the I guess my basic advice that I would give is your first year of flipping lawn tractors, you're going to run into a lot of screw ups on your end. And you've got to be willing to lose money to learn how to make money. My first year of flipping lawn tractors, I just barely broke even because I paid way too much and I was way too soft-hearted on people that ran me around and around on how much their machine was worth, and I didn't stick to my guns on how much I said I was willing to pay. The other thing is you got to plan out, is the distance worth driving? Is the money I'm paying for it able to be covered by parts? That's the other thing that I have told people for years. If it will not run, if it does not run, you need to have never spent more than its parts value parted out. Okay? So that's the reason why it is when I buy a machine, I will not buy a machine unless the engine is on it. It has got to be on it. It has got to be untouched as far as pulling parts off for the most part. Because if I buy it for $50, then I need to be able to pull something off of it that is worth $50 in total to make it worth the fact I spent $50. Okay? So if I pull a used starter, that's $20. If I pull a used coil, that's $10. If I can manage to pull a couple of tires off at $10 a piece, then I've got my $50 out of it. So never invest any more money into it than you know it parts out for. So if somebody sends me a picture and I only see $100 worth of part out, I'll offer them 50. If somebody sends me a picture and I see $200 worth of part out, I will offer them 100 to 150, depending on whether it's a motor I like or whether it's a transmission I know is interchangeable. The other thing is, focus on something that is prolific in your area. Get on Craigslist, get on Marketplace, find what it is there are 3 billion of. Okay? You guys oftentimes, make jokes at me about my Rangers and stuff like that. But the real reality is, it doesn't matter whether I am at my house, whether I'm an hour away, or whether I am 4 hours away from my house. If something on my Ranger breaks, I can find a junkyard. I can find an auto parts place. I can find something guaranteed, no matter what, that I can fix that Ranger. And that's my point. If you're going to start tractor flipping, do the research to find out what is prolific, do the research to find out what parts cost, and do the research to figure out what part out is worth. That's my biggest advice. And stick to your guns. Do not take a sob story. Unless it is somebody that you trust and you know the sob story is real, you've seen something to indicate the sob story is real, do not buy ever into a sob story. There are two. Well, let me word it to you this way. I bought a lawn tractor off of a guy that told me that his father had died and he was just trying to get rid of the tractor. To see the same guy trying to buy a tractor from me a month and a half later, I bought it, found out that he had swapped in a blown transmission and the motor was blown before selling it to me for $200 after I took his sob story. For him to be wishing his father, with his father talking back to him on Facebook 2 months later, a happy birthday while trying to buy a tractor off of me. Do not ever, 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 ever take a sob story at what they say. If there's no proof of it, don't go with it. Don't listen to it. Let it die. Okay? Let me see here. All right. So, guys, I'm very sorry. I need to go and stop the chat right here, and I'm going to go and move on to other stuff that I really need to get done. I've got a lot of stuff queued up for tomorrow that I've got to get focused on. This is the time we usually call it on the chats. And last time I totally lost track of what I was doing and what I was saying. So thank you, everybody, for supporting. Thank you for stopping in. As always, feel free to go and throw me a message. There's an email. You can get a hold of me on the Facebook page. And you're always welcome to go and kick out to me in whatever form works for you. Have a good day.